Well, hello and welcome to I Love Gay today. And this is fun. We're with James Felton Keith today from New York. How are you, James?
I'm good. I'm good, Matt. Thanks for having me here.
You and I, we never have to worry about what we're going to talk about. We can go on forever.
We can.
But I remember when we first connected because we knew of each other online through whether it was Twitter or LinkedIn, whatever it was. But I know you were in Detroit with the LGBT chamber at the time when I first started noticing some of your work and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. That must have been right after Detroit's bankruptcy around 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, we helped build out that chamber to sort of add some economic activism to all of the social and political stuff going on. This is pre-marriage equality. And we were sort of able to make a splash by starting the first Pride nights at the big box sports franchises in Detroit. It actually got me into a little bit of political trouble back then. So I was always looking back to New York for a little bit of emotional and business support. And I think that's where I started hearing about, the stuff that you were doing with LGBT Week and so many other things. Your name was sort of floating around, but it feels like that was no time ago. But
Yeah, yeah.
back then, there were just small pockets of us doing, the stuff with suit and ties on. Not that either one of us has a suit and tie on today, but there were just a few of us city
Yeah.
by city across the states back then. But yeah, time
I
flies.
remember that, and as I got to know you more when we were both in New York together, that's where it seemed like your world always collided with business, LGBT issues,
Oh yeah.
technology, and finance. It was like I always look at all those, and I always think like not to say he's the Renaissance man, but you really had a good handle on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I was a engineer first and then a macroeconomist second. I always like to think about tech as something you apply. So
Yeah.
the real focus was always finance and insurance. And then again, the 2010s just sort of happened to me where everyone was wearing their identities in order to facilitate whatever their work was best.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we started trying to talk about fintech, talk about insure tech, just to more people in our community, get them involved. Obviously, you had a huge platform to do that as we got together, over the course of the years for the LGBT week. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just try to stack things on top of each other: identity, profession, and how to get more people into it. Because I think when we think about any sort of minority group, there's always these huge barriers to get people involved, or folks that thinking that the work you do is a magic hat trick. And it's just the rigorous daily grind of staying in pocket. So yeah, I think fintech is cool. I think it's the easiest way to make some money and get into the market. I think everyone should play with whatever their industry is and add tech to the end of it. Insure tech, civic tech, you name it. Yeah.
I think that's what we had in common because
Yeah.
that's exactly that's always been that's my world, and I think I'm going to do that till I retire.
Yes. I mean, that's the fun. I think,
Yeah.
trying to play around with the pieces of the pie to see where else you can fit in, what else you can make. That's really the fun. I think it keeps me up at around 4:30 every morning. I'm usually up. I don't know if it's excitement or anxiety. It's one of them. But I'm usually up pretty early, worried about the next thing I can tinker on. So,
Yeah.
you know.
I hear you. But now uh, you're working on a new project here. Kind of during COVID, you've had time to step back a little bit, think and ponder, and it looks like you've got some new stuff in the on the works.
Yeah, I had a lot of time to step back. So I got pretty sick in last March. It's crazy that a year has passed, but yeah, since then I've stepped back, and I used to advise a series of groups who were coming together at the International Standards Organization to create international standards in general, whether they be for jet propulsion or cybersecurity, or now diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so, as of 2020, 160 plus countries have come together to ratify the first international standard, ISO standard for diversity and inclusion. And my new company, Inclusion Score, we're at inclusionscore.org. We've created the first standardized diversity and inclusion assessment across all industries. And the trick, back to what you pointed to earlier, is it's actually an insurance company. So what we also have is the first in class inclusion insurance. And what we've seen as we take this product to market is as companies use the ISO standard to turn diversity and inclusion efforts into regular change management, their ability to add insurance to it is actually incentivizing firms to get better about making their diversity and inclusion efforts actionable so that their insurance premiums on inclusivity comes down. Because what we're seeing right now are, at least in the United States, at the federal level, EEOC claims are on the rise. They're about $300 million a year in non-litigation settlements, another $1 billion a year in litigation settlements, but also state civil rights departments and city human rights departments are seeing cases on the rise, and they're having a real effect on for-profit and governmental entities and the assets that they claim on their balance sheets. Another fun fact for your viewers, for the business geeks of the world, is over the course of the past 50 years, the S&P 500 companies have gone from claiming about 15% of their balance sheets as intangible assets to now 90% of their balance sheets are intangible assets. And if anyone wants to know what that means, that's just code for people, right? And so if people are also suing you because they've been discriminated against in some form or fashion, it changes the value of those intangible assets on your books. And so the insurance industry is most concerned about lawsuits. And again, women are leading the charge, but certainly right behind them are people of color, then LGBT, and then disabled folks, veterans, you name it. The numbers are going up because everyone needs to be recognized in the workplace so they can foster a sense of belonging, and so that we can get back to the business of spreading the wealth around. So our product is trying to incentivize not only better behavior, but financialize the risk of bad behavior.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You're actually you're really good at being able to take some topics up here and bring it down to at least where, like I'm not in that world, but I get it. I understand where you're going with this.
Yeah, it's a new play. I think that is some of the hard work. I think that's a bit of the politician in me. When I ran for Congress last year, before I got sick, it was like learning a new skill set, trying to learn how to speak about what matters in the subject and not all the rigors of how it works. Because the old me would have wanted to tell you how the ISO standard works and how the tech works and what type of insurance it is. Yeah. But yeah, that's for later. But yeah, I mean, but there's a demand for the high level product. Yeah.
No, and it's interesting. Not only do we, off the top of my head, there's obvious organizations that would love to. You could probably easily tap into, whether it's Out and Equal and even NGLCC with what they do. What's interesting, and especially when we're on social media, I engage a lot with folks in the UK for some reason when it comes to topics like this. So yeah, for whatever it's worth, I've noticed that they have really kind of taken the lead worldwide when it comes to really taking these conversations and the technology and all of it and kind of taking that to a higher level. And I enjoy kind of watching it, participating when I can. And so I'm going to guess that that's going to be a great opportunity for you as well.
Oh, totally. I think so. Our first product release, obviously it's industry agnostic because I think every company with more than 25 employees should have some sort of diversity and inclusion strategy. But, but it's impossible to start a new company and say, we're going to target everyone. Yeah. So we're really focused on about 1.2 million companies in the English speaking world. So the US first, obviously, but then the UK is right behind it, Australia, Canada, India. But the standard, actually, the ISO standard, really came from the last iteration of a standard that was at the British Statistics Standards Institute, the BSI. Yeah. So they published a big standard in 2017, and then we sort of walked towards what we have today, which sort of came out in 2020. Yeah. So it's a huge opportunity. And maybe this thing that Oprah and Meghan Markle and them are doing is going to fuel the diversity and inclusion conversation in the UK. I don't know. Those numbers are pretty high too. So all that stuff comes into play, by the way.
All that stuff on Oprah, it's only a day old. But if anybody's wondering when we're recording this, it's only a day. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens from that.
Totally, totally.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but
we're
no, this is
excited.
gonna be good. And as you know, you and I can go on forever, as I had said. And in fact, I'm actually looking forward to making this a repeat thing. Perhaps we should plan on getting
Yeah,
together online here every few months.
let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do a regular re-up just to see
Yeah.
where we are. Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm looking forward to, now that things are starting to slowly open up. I'm looking forward to reconnecting with you when I get back into the city here in the next few months.
I was gonna say, right, if we can see you back in the city, yeah,
Oh yeah,
totally.
I'll be there. As a side note, I should be winding down. And as a side note, one of the things I'm going to do is capture some footage and do interviews like this, but on the story of gay bars and their fight for survival. And in
Mhm.
Harlem, there's the Alibi Bar, which is or
Yeah,
Alibi Lounge, and so we're going to go up there and a few other locations down in just kind of the village, and we're going
yeah.
to do some interviews and capture some footage and kind of try to get their story to light as far as what's happening there in New York.
Oh yeah, you got to do that. We had a bit of a press or a rally outside of Alibi about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Some kid was burning the pride flag out there. You probably saw that, but yeah. So we all sort of rallied around Lexi, the owner, and got a lot of the elected officials to come and show their support, just to say, look, we're not having this uptown at all. But they're still doing their due. We lost a boxers up in Washington Heights, but yeah, Alibi is still doing well. There's another new bar called Lambda
Lambda
Lounge,
Lounge.
uh,
Yeah, yeah,
and they're right down the street from Alibi. I think the interesting thing about the gay bar scene now than where I think it was from what I remember sneaking in the 90s and then actually going to bars in the 2000s is there's a lot of business to go around for different generational crowds. So depending on what you like or what kind of music you want to hear, which techno you're into, you go to Alibi or Lambda Lounge, depending
yeah.
on the day of the week. So yeah.
I know it's a digression, but it's our next big thing in New York. And also, I knew that when you and I used to connect up there in Harlem at
Yeah,
some of these events, so I was like, I
gotta
think
hit
you'll
it.
appreciate this.
We'll come by let us know when you go by there. They're right around the corner from me. Alibi is at least.
Yeah,
So
good to
yeah.
know. All right. Well, great seeing you here in the meantime.
Great seeing you. Great
All
seeing
right.
you.
Take
See you
care.
soon.
And
All
it
right.
feels good, so good.